It does, right? It would be, I think, impossible for the butler to be good as a man if he was a good butler to a bad person, right? And if the butler knew that this person was bad, then is it possible for him to still exercise his duty as a butler in a good fashion and be morally good? And I think the answer that Ishiguro urges is no. Right? By contrast, if he's a good man and you're serving him good, then the possibility exists that you both would be good. But I think that question of agency, because you don't have a choice to be good, you merely have a choice to exercise being a butler for this person or not. So, right, so it seems difficult at best to be both a good person and a good butler and a good person. I mean, I think that's where sort of that nuance lies. And so, to sort of bring it full circle on the difference between Yelp and Chopped is really sort of the difference of the modern technoculture in its most extreme form, and the kinds of things that it forms, people having isolated experiences and shouting out about them with uninformed judgment, which is what the practices and the folks on Chopped, both the participants and the judge have, which is what we see throughout, is that we have this habituation and that there are levels of expertise, and it's those interactions that allow one to make informed judgment and to make judgment about whether something is well executed. But those only happen in those sort of, when we're engaged with people who are interested in our own, or are as interested in our development as we are and as we are with theirs. Right? Are there questions to this point? I see some hedges, but no. All right, let's quickly go to the, I'm going to grab, well, these are really long rows. Just pass those down to, pass those. Oops. Actually, you guys can go all the way across. So can you, I'm going to take one so I can read it. Yeah, I think there's two there. So the paradigmatic essay, you'll notice on the syllabus that this takes 3 weeks of our class time together. What's that? This is the final essay. You did receive via email the second essay that's due after Thanksgiving. This is due as the final. I don't know the date that you guys, thank you.
Syllabus says 17.
That's, yeah, I just haven't looked at it, and so whatever that is, or whatever Dr. Waters says post to that. The assignment assumes that you will draw upon prerequisite coursework and requires systematic theology courses, doctrines of God, Christology, and pneumatology in answering the following question. Describe the roles Scripture, worship, and doctrine play, or should play, in the formation of the Christian moral vision or imagination. Discuss how such vision or imagination is or should be operated in Christian moral deliberation, discernment, and action, using one of the spheres examined in the course as a contextual background. So, we're looking at healthcare, economics, politics. Did I miss any, Bernard? Those are the three, correct? Yeah. So politics, healthcare, or economics are the spheres in which we've examined the Christian moral imagination. and responses. Technology serves as the overarch, right? So technology, so we've looked at how healthcare has affected, or we've looked at how technology has affected and impacted upon healthcare. We've looked at how it has formed the thought process behind politics, and we will see how technology, etc., impacts economics. Right? So we've seen 2 of the 3. Usually when he gives us, we've seen all 3, and we've had conversations about it. So though generally, if you wanted to take something specific about technology, that would probably be an okay item as well. But the framework of the course is looking at how technology has formed us as persons in the 21st century, and then looked at how that impacts upon each of those areas. But generally, if a reasonable case can be made, then that your topic is of significant interest and close enough to the class, and it's generally not a problem. So you'll notice that there are 3 sort of class sessions devoted to executing this particular assignment well. And the reason why it's coupled on the back of a lecture on habituation is because this is partially an exercise in habituation, right? It is a ongoing development of your writing. And so the first time we'll get together and you'll talk and you'll sort of think about your ideas, and then you'll have a chance to go back and bring them to the class, and your peers will sort of critique and help answer, and will ask further questions and help refine that down. And then you'll have another opportunity to go back and actually start some writing, and we'll come back together again and think about it and help refine that down so that you have an opportunity to really improve upon your writing experience, right? So we're really participating together in the practice of critical thinking and writing. And so it's advantageous for you to work on it in between those sessions so that you have something of substance to bring back and have others critique and engage. You look like you have a question.
No, keep going.
Okay. So the evaluation criteria is clarity of argument, is the principal thesis or theses written in a clear and forthright manner. And we touched on this. You've all received at least 1 back if you've turned 1 in. Your essays and have either been suggested to rewrite or to think more clearly, and so you should have some idea of what the expectation is as regards a clear thesis. The coherence of argument, right? The principal arguments are developed in a logical and engaging manner. Again, I think some of the feedback that we've given so far, and you likely will have the second one back before this one is due, though no guarantees. This is life after all. But what we're after is a coherent argument, that paragraphs follow in a logical way from your thesis, that the paragraphs really are driving back up to support your thesis. Elegance and eloquence of prose. The language employed is crisp, concise, and free of jargon. What does that mean? Don't use don't. Don't use don't. Ain't a good reason to use ain't. Yeah, so, like you're writing an academic paper, not a text, not a tweet, not a whatever. This is an academic paper, so follow the conventions of academic paper writing. Crisp, concise, so crisp, generally active verbs are preferred over is, was, passive voice. Just gives the language a little bit clearer punch. concise. He would like to tax for adjectives, which I kind of agree. Right, so you don't need very in front of a word the first time especially the first time you use it. It should never be in front of the word the first time you use it, because very is a word that modifies and says, well, if it's good, well, this is very good, well, then what was good before it? So, concise, think about your language, edit, proofread. If you can say it in 5 words, say it in 5 words. If you can say those same, if you can write the same sentence in 10 words and it's a 15-sentence word, write it in 10 sentences. Oftentimes that also comes with the crispness of using the active voice over the passive voice. Critical engagement with relevant sources. So the essay reflects a command of the pertinent literature and demonstrates critical reasoning skills. So really what we're after is, in this essay, is how does scripture, worship, and doctrine at play, or how does it work, operate, or should it, in the formation of the Christian moral vision or imagination? And then the second sort of question is, how is that operative, or how should it be operative? So you're making normative claims about the liberation of a particular problem in healthcare, right? So you can take up, you can take up the topic that Bernard lectured on, assistive reproductive technology, and either nuance it or look at how that might or does affect a particular segment of the population. You can contrast different types of long-term care, and is one response seemingly more Christian than another, and for what reasons, and what aspects of the tradition are you drawing upon to make that claim? In economics, we'll kind of look at the impacts of globalization and 2 arguments for and against, and so you may take a tack on one of those, or you may have some other question that hinges on economics, something more specific, narrow like child labor, or I have one student write on the Christian moral imagination and fair trade coffee movement. So the options, as long as they fall broadly under one of those 3 specifically, and then probably if you wanted to craft a question around technology specifically or specific technology, that would probably be acceptable too. So that's just something that you need to run through with him when he's back next week. But that generally is the overview. I mean, the goal is really to get you to think about what we've talked about in class. If you think about the way that I talked about death and dying last week with scripture, culture, tradition, theological tradition, that's a pretty good template for what he's asking us to do in these paradigmatic essays. Questions at this point? Yes. I knew it was there.
Yeah. I was coming. It says describe the roles of scripture, worship, and doctrine. That is roles rather than contributions, right? Is that distinction make sense?
What do you mean by what? How are you trying to?
Okay, so scripture, for instance. I'm discussing the way that scripture should be read in community, right? Would be kind of a role scripture plays versus discussing a particular passage in scripture that proposes, right, this idea based on however we read it. Does that make sense?
It does. I think both and.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think if that's the distinction that you're making, I
Yes.
think both and, particularly then as as you move into like making the normative claims, right? I mean, they're both normative because you're asserting how it ought to be used.
Right.
And then like actually examining a particular moral issue, you're
Right.
seeing this sort of how it's played out, and so you may specifically want to draw upon Scripture. Other questions?